Hi Sugar Snaps, welcome to the studio. If you're new here, my name is Brittany. I'm a basket weaver and fiber artist, and today I want to share how to weave these reed stars. So this is made out of basket reed or rattan reed, and this is a little guy. This is made with a 1/4 inch flat reed. I'm going to be using 1/2 inch flat reed, so we'll end up with a slightly larger star, but it's cool to see different sizes. This mini one, we'll be making a larger one. You can make them multiple sizes, really big ones, little tiny ones, and they're great for holiday decoration or gifts as ornaments or to hang from the ceiling. There's lots of different things you can do with them. You could even put this on a wreath and make a small wreath of these. So lots of applications for these little ornaments, and they're pretty easy to make, and they're a great thing to do with your basket weaving scraps. If you do a lot of basket weaving, you end up with a lot of scraps, and these are great to use up those scraps so that you're not wasting material that could be turned into something beautiful. So today I'm going to be using 1/2 inch wide flat reed, and these are pieces that I have that may be too short for a basket or that were left over from some project that I want to use for the star. So 1/2 inch flat reed. You'll need some sort of wood glue or craft glue. I'm using this Gorilla wood glue. It works really well on the reed because it ends up drying a similar color to the reed, and it's pretty hardy so it doesn't break or crack or come apart. You'll need a paintbrush to apply the glue, lots of 2-inch metal clamps, a cloth measuring tape, pencil, your reed cutters, and a spoke weight. I also have a towel down just like you would if you're doing any sort of basket weaving. This helps catch the drips from the reed. A bin of water and a towel under that, again for the drips. The first step in weaving these stars is to cut out the lengths that you need. And for this star, I'm going to use a 16-inch length. So I'll cut out 20 pieces that are 16 inches long, and I'm lining the measuring tape up with the end of the reed here and then cutting at 16 inches, and then I'll go in and put in a center mark at 8 inches. So the center of the stake is 8 inches, and I need a total of 20 of these because we're going to end up making two sections that fit together for this star. And because it's boring to watch somebody else cut stakes, I'm gonna jump ahead, use some movie magic, and I'll see you when all 20 stakes are cut. And we're back and we have 20 stakes cut. If you are tempted to not put the center mark on the stakes, I suggest putting the center mark on the stakes because as we start to weave, you want things to be balanced and to be even. The center marks will help us to meet up the center of the stakes in the center of the snowflakes so that all of the arms of the snowflake or star, whatever you want to call this, they end up being even lengths. If you don't have that center mark, it's really hard to see that as you're creating the center section, and you could end up with a wonky star. And why start out wonky if you don't have to? And I speak from experience because adding the center mark can be boring when you want to get straight to the weaving part, but don't skip it. Put your stakes in the water bin and allow them to soak just for a few seconds, but we only need to start out with 5. So pull out 5 of your 16-inch long stakes and lay them out in front of you so that the center mark matches up. This is why we put the center mark in place, so that we can match them up, line them up here in the center. And then put your spoke weight on top there. If you don't have a spoke weight, using a piece of wood, a block of wood, or strip of something heavy is helpful. It means that you're able to set your stakes in place, and you can see mine are kind of bent in the opposite direction and they don't want to lay flat. So instead of having to keep a hand there and hold them in place with my hand, the spoke weight does that for me. Oh, side note, if you don't have reed, you can also do this with strips of paper or cardstock or cardboard. I would suggest using something thick that is nice and sturdy. Printer paper probably is a little bit too flimsy. You'd have to be really careful. But when we get to the gluing part, you could attach the ends with staples instead of glue. So just another idea out there for you. So with these stakes laid out, we have 5 stakes laid out here. We're now going to weave this center portion of the star. So we're going to weave stakes going the opposite direction. So I'll take another 5, 3, 4, and 5, set them aside so that you can grab them easily. And this center mark here is going to meet up in the 3rd stake over, or the center stake. So we have 1, 2, and 3, which is the center stake here. So I'm going to weave over one stake, under the next stake, over, under, and over. Slide my stake through so that center mark overlaps and meets up with this center stake. And this stake sits right in the middle of these other center marks. So everything ends up centered. Now, oops, this pile. I'm going to weave the opposite pattern that I did this first one. So where I was over here, I'm going to lift up and go under, over, over, under, slide it through, match up this center mark under this stake right here, slide it in. I'm kind of eyeballing a space in between each stake so I end up with even squares in between each of these stakes, and we'll square it up with the measuring tape here in a few minutes. Okay, one more stake here on this side. So again, over, under, and slide this in. So that is my 2 stakes on that side. I'll switch my stake weight over to this side of the grid, and now I'm going to weave 2 more on this side of the center marks. So again, my center marks being right here, going to weave 2 more on this side, following the plain weave, basket weave, opposite pattern, weaving opposite of what I did before. And now there is my initial grid. Now we need to true things up. For this star, I want the center box, the center grid, to be 4 inches in width. So I'll line up the 2-inch mark on my measuring tape with this center point on this stake. And we can even put a little star here to remember that this is our center stake, and that's where we need to base our measurements off of. Now, out from 2 inches this direction, I'm going to scoot this so that it lines up with the edge there, and then to 4 inches over here, and that looks good. So now I'll switch this around in the other direction and bring in my stakes, slide them in until I meet up with the edge of the measuring tape here, and then with the 4-inch mark over here. And this side looks good already. So that all looks nice and square. You can do it to the outside to make sure things are squared the way they need to be and it's even all the way around. And then you can check to make sure that the stakes on the inside of this perimeter set of stakes, that all of these spaces are even. So I'm going to move things around until my spacing is even and it looks nice and has a nice grid, because this section right here is this point right here in the star. Now we're going to be folding the corners to create these arms. This star is made up of two pieces, so they're fit together. So these 4 arms here are one piece, and then you flip it over and these 4 arms here are the other piece. So we're going to start making those arms by using the 2 pieces in opposite corners. So where this one and this one meet, we're going to fold under and glue them together. So grab your glue and a paintbrush. Oh gosh. I got it. Okay, with the glue open and your paintbrush handy, we're going to have this ready because we're going to glue the corners together as we fold them. So grab a couple clamps, have them out so that you can grab them easily, and you can move your spoke weight at this point because you won't need it. Rotate the base, or the center, looks like a base of a basket. It's the center of the star. You're going to rotate it so that you have 2 points angling out toward you. Now take these points, and this is important to angle them down in the right direction so that you have consistency with all of your points. So these you're going to take, put your fingers on top, grab underneath with your thumbs, rotate them around and underneath, and now line up the points. And these points right here lined up straight edge with the edge of the reed, straight edge with the edge of the reed. Those points we're going to glue. So take some glue on your paintbrush. You can lift up, put glue on one end of the reed, and it might take a nice thick coating to get these two stay together. And then fold this back under, put them on top of each other, and with the clamp them in place. And you want to make sure that they rotate and they're staying nice and lined up so that they dry squared and straight to each other. Now we're going to do this next set of stakes, but before we do that, we need to do some trimming because these will fold under and come underneath, and we need them to be shorter. So from each end, we need to trim off 1/2 inch. And you can do this with a measuring tape. Go in, put in a 1/2 inch and trim away 1/2 inch, or you can guesstimate if you want to just trim off about 1/2 inch from each side. And this is the arms or stakes sticking out from either side of that first loop we made. So again, we're grabbing, putting our fingers on top of this stake, bringing our thumb underneath, looping them under and underneath this first arm, and lining up these points. And this we're going to glue as well. So you can release one side, put some glue on the top of the other side. Nice thick coating. And rotate this one back under, stick it on top, make sure that they line up, clamp it in place, make any adjustments that need to happen, and wipe away any excess glue that squeezes out. It does dry a similar color to the natural reed color, but it also shows up if there's big clumps sticking out. So wipe that away with your finger if any squeeze out. Now rotate your star again so you have another two sticking out, and we'll do that same process with this side again. So fingers on top of these two stakes, thumbs underneath, rotate them up and under so that your thumbs are now on top. Now I'll let go of this one and put some glue on this left side. Nice big glop. Then rotate this back under and on top. Clamp it in place like so. Wipe away the excess glue. And then for these ends, trim down 1/2 inch. You can guesstimate or measure it out. And again, fingers on top, thumbs underneath, rotate under so your thumbs end up on top. And this one on the left, I'm going to add some more glue to. Clamp it in place like so. Wipe away any excess glue that squirts out. And that is your second side. Now we'll rotate and keep doing these corners. Rotate this one under. Add the glue like so. And rotate. Oh, I forgot this one. 1/2 inch short. Rotate this under. One of the cool things about these stars is that you can do a lot of different variations with this. You can use multiple widths of reed to create different designs in the actual structure of the star. You can dye the reed before you make the star, so have colored or mix match of colors. Dye some of the stakes and leave some of them natural. You can put them together and then stain them with wood stain, and so darken or do some sort of wood tone on them. You could do some sort of paint on them. I've never done paint on reed, and I think that most acrylic paints would probably end up cracking on the surface of the reed over time, just not staying on the surface of the reed very well. But it's worth a try to do some painting on them. But I would stick with dyeing previous to making the stars so that you can practice and get the color that you actually want. If you want a video on how to dye your own basket reed, you can check this video up here. I did a tutorial on how to do that. Okay, there are our 4 sides glued and clamped, and now this needs to set aside and allow all of those sections to dry. I would suggest allowing these to dry overnight just so that you make sure it doesn't pop apart, but a couple hours would probably do it. Setting it somewhere warm and dry would help that process to speed up. And we're not done yet because we need to weave a second section like this in order to have our 2 sections to create the final star. So let's start a second half. I'll set this aside to dry, and now grab out 5 more stakes. So we're repeating the process we did before, laying the stakes out in front of us, like so, making our initial grid, and you can put your stake weight down whenever you need to. My center marks are lined up now, so then I'll come in and weave my first stake, line it up with the center, and then 2 more on this side. So I'm weaving opposite that previous row. Like so. And then I'll switch sides with my spoke weight and do this other side as well. So we're creating that center grid, and we need to mirror what we did for the first one. So we're weaving a grid, and then we're going to go in with our measuring tape and create another 4-inch square in the center. So doing some truing to make sure that it's the right size, just sliding in these stakes, straightening things out. If you noticed, I just kind of threw the stakes in and wove it really fast just to get it started. And now I can go in and do the truing to separate things and space them out the way I want them to be. Slide this in. Like so. And then I'll check all the edges to make sure they're the right size as well. Okay, that looks good. Now I can lift off my spoke weight again and rotate the center piece. And we're going to repeat the corner gluing that we did with that first piece, making sure to rotate the arms in the same direction. So again, fingers on top, grip with your thumbs underneath and bring it around so your thumbs are on top. And here's a good point to point out. Let me clamp this in place so that it starts to stick, and then I'll show you. So if your stakes come undone like this, you can just slide it back in. And if you want to double check that things lay flat, you can come back in, line up that center mark, and slide it back in to meet your 4-inch square. And that will fix any inconsistencies that happen as you're working. Again, I'm trimming down 1/2 inch for that second loop. I'll bring this underneath, add some glue. I think my Gorilla Glue is starting to dry out and get to be a bit old. Okay, and then rotate around. We'll do this side again. Not again. Next. Clamp. Take off 1/2 inch. And glue these as well. This would also make a really cool Christmas tree topper if you wove one large enough for the size of your tree, like proportionately. And you could do it in different colors to match the theme that you're using as well. Last year, Jordan and I got a National Forest permit, and went and cut down a Christmas tree in the forest legally. And it ended up being a very cute, very tall, very sparse Charlie Brown tree. And we brought it home and decorated it. And it was unlike anybody else's tree ever before. And we really enjoyed it. I loved it. This year, though, I asked if I could do a nice, full, beautiful tree and decorate it. So I'm hoping to be able to have a tree that I can do a theme on and decorate with all of my pretty ornaments, and maybe do some stars and some orange slices as ornaments, do kind of the earthy Christmas tree theme. I think that would go well with the reed stars and natural material ornaments. Okay, here's my last arm, clamped, wipe away the excess glue. Now, there's our second piece. So we have the two sections of the star here, and these pieces need to dry. Once they're dry, we can come back, fit them together, glue the last of the pieces together, then we'll do a final drying, and then our piece will be ready to use. So, for now, let's let this dry, and I'll see you in a bit. Hey, welcome back. The pieces have dried, so let's start to attach them together so that we can clamp them and let them dry again. So to put these pieces together, they're sitting up on the table like this, like kind of like little spiders, and we need to flip one of them over so that it lays flat on the table, and then rotate one and put it on top of the first one so that the corners are kind of kitty corner and landing on top of these center pieces. So we've rotated it. These are sitting on top like so. And now these straight pieces here, these are going to go and tuck underneath and inside of our rounded glued arms. So each of these corners slips into this rounded space like so. And then we'll do the same with the one laying on the table. Lift up the piece and lay it on top like so. And I'm leaving the clamps where they are because we're going to end up reclamping things in place once we glue the pieces together on these straight pieces. So set that up on our work surface, and now reopen your glue. And now with the glue, we're going to take the end of this straight piece, so it's sliding through this curve. I'm going to put glue underneath. So I've lifted it up, putting a glob of glue on the end here. And now this end, we want to meet up with the point of this curved bit, and then clamp that in place so that you're layering the two arms and this straight piece. And now we'll do the same thing. So for this one, I'm actually going to put the glue on this curved piece right here. So I'll move the clamp and put the glue underneath here on top like so. And then 1/2 inch away from the first section, I'm going to put this, clamp it on, and the glue will hold it right there. Now rotate your star. And let's do this one. So this one's opposite of the one we just glued. So the rounded side, or the pointed side, is facing up rather than facing down. So again, I'll unclamp this, put glue on the end, overlap, that one wasn't quite dry. Overlap these 3 pieces like so, and then clamp them together and wipe away the excess glue. And when these have completely dried, we'll go in and trim the ends, any pieces that are sticking out, so that they're nice and pointed and back to the shape we want them to end up as. So for this, I'm going to put a little bit of glue about 1/2 inch away from that first one. Unclamp this guy and put it in place. And clamp it together like so. And rotate again. Catch this one. Clamp this in place. Rotate. And sometimes it can be tricky to find where to put the clamp so that it holds it together but doesn't move anything wonky. So just finagle things until it all situates where it needs to go. Like that. You can see some of my pieces are coming apart, which just means either they weren't totally dry or there wasn't enough glue on them to hold them together in the first place. So I'm adding some glue to this piece and then clamping all of the layers together to try to catch it on this second round. here you have all of the pieces glued together. You can start to see how it's going to form and look. And notice my pencil marks are showing up right now from where I put the center marks. We'll go in and use an eraser to wash those out, or you can stain over it and they'll disappear in the stain color. For now, we'll let this rest and completely dry. This time I really am going to let it rest overnight so that nothing comes apart when I undo the clamps, because at this point I want to be able to finish it off and hang it up. So allow it to completely dry, and then we'll come back, take the clamps off, do any trimming, and finish it up. Okay, I'm back. This guy has been drying for long enough that the stakes are all nice and firm and attached, glued, dried, whatever. So I'm going to take off all of these clamps all the way around. And I ended up with some little grooves, notches on the reed from the clamps because they ended up staying on for quite a few days that we can wash off later. Now with all the clamps off, you have your beautiful star. The last step here to finish this section off is to go around and trim off these points that are sticking out. So where this straight reed pokes out, I like to trim off the corners so it just mimics the nice point of the star, and it completes it, gives it a nice finished end here. So I'll trim these off all the way around the star. And then once this is done, the last step is to stain or seal your star. And I suggest, if you like the natural tone of the reed, I suggest that you at least seal it with a clear sealer so that it protects it from mold and mildew and the grease of your hands, natural oils and things. So there's all those cut. Yeah, so do a quick sealing spray with a wood finish, a clear wood finish. Something light is really helpful, or a basket spray. And I'll put in the description below some suggested stains and sealers that I use. If you want to change the color of the reed, you can dip this in a bath of dye if you want to dye it a color, or stain it with a wood stain if you want to use a wood tone. And you can go in and also erase the pencil marks if those bother you. Now, after staining and sealing this guy, you can either use it as a Christmas tree topper. You'll just stick it on top of your tree, or you could put a strand of twine or jute or something through one of the legs of the star and hang it from the ceiling or on a wall. You could put multiple together. I like the idea of multiple hanging from the ceiling to create like a snowstorm effect. But that is how to create a Carolina snowflake. This one is pretty simple. We use the same size reed all the way around. You can play around with widths. You can play around with adding color. There's tons of variations you could do. You could add more stakes if you want a bigger star, or longer stakes, wider reed if you want it to get even bigger. So lots of different variations you can play around with. This is just the basic foundation for this piece, and you can go from here. Thanks so much for joining me in the studio today. I would love to see your completed stars. If you want to tag me on Instagram at TextileIndie, I'd love to see those. Check the description below for all the tools and resources we used in this video, as well as links to my website. I have lots of other basket weaving resources there. Thanks for joining me, and until next time, happy making.